Thank you very much. And before I take a seat, I will just say that James may have some issues with connection. So we hope he will be with us. And we hope he will tell us when he's online with us. But it seems that maybe it's only me who is going to run the session. Hopefully you will enjoy it. So welcome everybody to this afternoon session on bioeconomy, as it was said. My name is Alicja Kacprzak. I work as a forestry officer at FAO in the joint unit between FAO and United Nations Economic Commission for Europe in Geneva. And I cover issues related to circular economy and bioeconomy and also sustainable management of forest resources. And today I will be moderating a session. And also there will be other speakers. I will also be one of the speakers, it happens. And I would like to start the session with thanking James for preparing the session. I would like to recognize that he did most of the work, and I was kindly invited also to help him to moderate the session. And I gladly, of course, accepted this invitation. I'm very grateful because he did a wonderful job. You will see that we have many speakers coming from different backgrounds, coming from different countries. We are going to cover different aspects of bioeconomy, forest bioeconomy. The session is shaping up very interestingly, and you will see that there is a very strong connection also to the previous session that we enjoyed before the lunch break. And I heard there was somebody saying that there is more to a forest than timber. And I think this is absolutely natural to say that there is more to say about bioeconomy than just timber. And I think you will see during the session that there are so many different aspects that need to be compiled to achieve a successful transition towards a bioeconomy. And also because of my background working with FAO and UNICEF, I want to also underline the circularity aspect of the bioeconomy. So in that sense, I feel there is a strong connection to the previous session. And I also dare to say that there is also a very strong link to health, to One Health, and also to human health that results from bioeconomy, because bioeconomy is not only about economy, it is also about the social aspects. We are talking about employment. We are also talking about environmental sustainability. When we talk about bioeconomy and circularity, based on some models that are very general, we have to pay attention and be very careful also about maintaining the sustainability aspect. And we know very well that there are some cases when this sustainability aspect is not met. And because of that, in particular in the forest sector, when we rely on this wonderful natural resource, we have to pay attention to that. So now I'm going to change the hat from the moderator and will present the presentation which I prepared. And after we will continue with other speakers. Thank you very much. And my presentation today is going to be about the role of forests, of the forest sector in a transition to a bio-based circular economy. And I will try to talk about the role of forest sector from a perspective of the entire economy that is going through a transition to being bio-based circular economy. And my presentation is going to be based on the study that was recently prepared by FAO and UNECE about the circularity concepts in forest-based industries. And why we took this idea of forest-based industries. It is because in the circular economy, we are talking about value chains that are cross-cutting different sectors. So we no longer talk only about the forest sector, but we are talking about all the industries that take the basis in forest and then cross the economy that is based on value chains and not on sectors that are locked in silos. And for that, you can see on the screen the list of different value chains that we analyzed in this study. And we took into consideration different circularity aspects, challenges and opportunities in these value chains that result from a transition towards a circular bio-based economy. So in our study, we like to talk about the bio-based circular economy, because we believe that the sustainability of the economy is being shaped by the fact that it is circular. When we talk about the entire economy, not all the sectors of the economy are bio-based. Some rely still on fossil fuels, and it's difficult to be changed, and maybe it will not be changed. And that is why we talk about circular economy that is sustainable and is aiming to be sustainable by replacing as much as possible and where it is possible the fossil-based materials by bio-based materials. And for that, we use the model that is probably known to most of you, where you can see on the left-hand side the biological cycle, and the on the right-hand side, the technical cycle, and in the bio-based circular economy, these cycles interact. Naturally, you also have many models and definitions and understanding of bioeconomy and of circular economy. That is why in our analysis, we also use the principles of the circular economy to translate the model into the reality in some value chains. Why we are talking about the bio-based circular economy? In the policy making, there is an increasing interest in this concept and related concepts as well, because as I said, it is not a uniform concept. We are facing different challenges today that are related to growing demand for raw materials. We are facing pressure on ecosystems. We are facing also climate change and different types of pollution, and also increasing amount of waste. So transition to a bio-based circular economy creates some opportunities for more prominent position of the forest sector, because it is a sector that is is based and is relies on a resource that is renewable and biodegradable, so can create biodegradable materials. The materials also have low carbon impact in the long term, and increased use of wood and other forest products can contribute to a transition in many other sectors that are today contributing to pollution, to climate change, such as construction, plastic production, and textiles production. Naturally, if we are giving more prominence to the role to the forest sector in the bio-based circular economy, there are also challenges related to that. First of all, because today we are already facing issues related to regeneration of forest resource vis-a-vis the pressures that there are on ecosystems, such as forest fires, of course, climate change, pests, and also different strategies that are related to the forest landscape or landscape management and priorities related to that. Also, we have to consider sustainability of supply in the context that there is more interest of using wood for the entire economy and beyond in the applications, beyond the traditional applications of wood. And of course, the very important aspect that is somehow maybe out of the scope of the forest sector itself today, traditional thinking, is what is happening to the wood at the end of value chains. Can we coordinate this better? Can we ensure better economic viability of the solutions that already exist, so that we can have some sustainable business models related to that? Coming back to the very beginning of the value chains, circular value chains, we cannot talk about the sustainability of these value chains if we do not ensure the sustainability of activities that are happening in the forests. And because of that, it is absolutely important to stop deforestation that is happening in the parts of the world that we still experience that. We have to restore ecosystems and landscapes. We have to use wood from sustainably managed forests and use wood-based materials which are renewable and biodegradable. That means that we pay attention also to eco-design, and we do not mix sustainable material wood with non-sustainable components that is making the recyclability and biodegradability of wood challenge. And also we need to pay attention that there are different characteristics that relate to forest-based industries vis-a-vis typical models in circular economy when we take, for instance, aluminium, that we see the cycle of recycling and reproducing the aluminium in the form that is similar to the initial product that we had. Of course, wood is a biodegradable source and circulates it both in biological and technical cycles, and nutrients return to the biosphere. So this is a specific characteristic that enforces this, actually, this biocomponent. This is very present in our sector, and it's not present in other sectors, some other sectors. In the forest sector and forest-based industries, we are talking about cascading use of wood rather than circular use, as again, compared to aluminium. This is very important also. Circular value chains, when we consider that, we have to look not only at the material flows to ensure the sustainability, but also the carbon cycles and energy cycles, and try to optimize the objectives of these cycles as well to ensure sustainability. Of course, there's no circularity without sustainable forest management. And as much as we have today relatively effective resource management in the manufacturing part of the value chains, because it is also related to economic viability. When we look at the end of the value chains, as I mentioned before, closing the loop with post-consumer waste is still a challenge. We do not have so much attention to that. And also the policy solutions, like for instance, the take back and the responsibility, the producer responsibility that is functioning in some other sectors, it is not yet functioning there are of course some pilot projects, but it is not functioning in the forest sector. And because of that, this is somehow off the scope still, or not enough in the scope. So when we talk and we consider the increased circularity of forest-based industries, we have to base it on sustainable forest management to ensure sustainability of value chains. Eco-design needs to be promoted to ensure effective circularity, and in particular also this inclusion of the end-of-life materials and valorization of these materials, so that we can really close the loop. We cannot be just circular and efficient in the production phase, but we also need to start looking what is happening to that after the consumer use. And today we are facing the fact that economic viability of circular approaches is often low. So it's a challenge to build sustainable business models based on circularity still, because we have these challenges that are related to the fact that the residues have low value and you often have to pay to have them collected. It's a service. Cellulose-based fibers and plastics are biodegradable, so you cannot recycle them as aluminium. So again, what is the sustainability of the model? And repair, collection, and redistribution services are labor intensive and can be expensive because of that. So again, the economic viability is impacted. And of course, also the social viability, because we also have to talk about the labor conditions and the decent jobs, decent payments in the long term. Waste collection infrastructure is underdeveloped. So we have to develop the infrastructure that is, of course, related to investment. Transport costs in a fragmented collection infrastructure is expensive. And of course, we can have also some environmental externalities that are related to the fact that extraction of wood from forests to produce more bio-based products has to sometimes compete with the fact that leaving some wood residues in the forest is beneficial to ecosystems. So again, we have to look at all the forest functions to ensure the sustainability really of value chains, and we need to look at this problem in a cohesive way. And geographically extended value chains contribute to negative environmental impact of transport. So again, we should not push for circularity and closing the loop at any price to follow the models, but we need to check case by case the environmental impact of that. Is it sustainable actually? Because transport is also causing the environmental externalities. And of course, recovering, reusing, and recycling imply energy consumption. So again, the sustainability. So I will skip to be on time and just quickly show you the recommendations that we came up with this study. Of course, definition of a circular economy in the forest sector that is adapted to the specificities that I mentioned is very important to develop it. And hopefully United Nations will take care of that. I'm starting now a work on a definition, and we will work on this and prepare some proposal with the experts. But of course, the success of this definition depends on the willingness of countries to adopt it. So let's see. And of course, again, circularity does not equal sustainability, as I mentioned, and I gave you some examples. We need some good practice guides and on how to function in industrial ecosystems, how to connect better the forest with the value chain. So there should not be disconnection. We have to know what's happening in the forest, so how much we can put into the value chains. We also have to assess different national needs, because there is different needs and different backgrounds, so we cannot also copy paste some of the solutions. And of course, at the end, hopefully we will be able to develop a strategy about how to move towards a more circular and bio-based economy. Thank you very much. And so I'll switch back to my moderator role, and I will tell you that in case you have questions, and if there are questions to speakers, not only to myself, we will keep them for the panel discussion. And now I will invite another speaker who is online, I imagine. Can we have confirmation that we have next speaker? Yes, very good. So I don't know, maybe we change the slides now. It's already there. Very good. So I have a pleasure to introduce to you our next speaker, who is Dr. Achille Jean Jaza Folefack, who is Associate Professor at the Department of Rural and Socioeconomics and Agricultural Extension at the University of Chang in Cameroon. Dr. Jaza Folefack holds a PhD in agricultural economics from Justus Liebig University of Gießen in Germany. Many languages, difficulties to pronounce, please excuse me. He conducts partnerships and collaboration with international academic and research institutions, and has been awarded several fellowships, research grants, and visiting teaching positions. His publications focus on measures to alleviate poverty, famine, and malnutrition in rural areas, and solutions to solve waste management and ecological problems in Cameroon. And the title of his presentation will be Implications of Legalizing Artisanal Chainsaw Milling on Social Welfare, Income Distribution, and the Economic Performance of Sawyers in Cameroon. So it is another social aspect. So the floor is yours, please. You are likely muted. We do not see you. We do not hear you in the room. Can you check your microphone?
Can you hear me now?
Very well. Thank you very much.
Okay. So should I put on my PowerPoint, or you are going to do it for me?
Yes, please put it yourself.
Okay. So thank you for giving me the floor from Cameroon, where I'm at present. So my topic of my presentation is implication of legalizing artisanal chainsaw milling on the social welfare, economic income distribution, and the economic performance of soya in Cameroon. The situation is that there is the law in Cameroon, but people fail to apply it. Actually, there is a lack of implementation of the 1994 Forestry law. There is a non-respect of the international agreements signed by Cameroon. For instance, the Cameroon signed the CITES Convention to regulate the export of certain timber species, but that law is not really applied in the field. Cameroon signed.
I'm sorry, I would like to stop you because it seems like you are not sharing the screen. We cannot see your slides.
You cannot see my sky. You cannot see me.
No, we see you, but we don't see your slides.
What should I do now?
We don't see any slide.
So what should I do now? What should I do now from the slide? I don't know.
Try to share your slides. Can we share?
Yeah, but then we cannot see him anymore. That's the problem.
But I send you the slide already. How should I do it? I don't know how to do it.
We are going to share the slides for you now.
You can.
Please
I
confirm.
sent you my PowerPoint before, so you can do it and then I present, because I don't know.
Yes, please confirm if you can see the slides, and we will change the slides for you.
Yes, you can just change the slide for me.
Okay, very well. So we go to the next slide. Please indicate that.
Okay, so.
Okay, next slide.
Next slide. So I say that currently there is a lack of implementation of the 1994 Forestry Law. In Cameroon, there is no respect of the international agreement signed by Cameroon itself. So Cameroon does not respect the CITES Convention on the prohibition of the certain species, to log certain species. Cameroon currently does not respect the voluntary partnership agreement, that is the Forest Law Enforcement Government and Trade, the European Union. Cameroon currently does not respect, the law exists, but it does not respect the reduction of emission for deforestation and degradation of forest. The law exists on the voluntary carbon payment, but it's not applied in the field. Go to the next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, the situation is that in the field, really, the illegal timber logging exists, and actually about 750,000 cubic meters per year of informal timber logging is logged. The 29% of forest operators do not pay any form of forestry tax. 68% of the forest operators do not have any tax identification number. They still lose nearly 7 billion CFF per year from informal forest operation through uncovered tax. Go on, please. Next slide. So from this illegality, this research aims to answer the following question: how does chainsaw milling illegality influence social welfare and benefit distribution among different soil categories? How will the legalization of timber logging change the soil benefit distribution as well as the social welfare and forest degradation impact? Go next slide. So this study aims therefore to categorize the soil in different clusters by considering the socio-economic and business characteristics in the chainsaw milling marketing chain. This study has the second objective to estimate and compare the private and social welfare of different soil categories in situation of legal and illegal timber logging activity. This study also aims to analyze the equity inside and between the soil category by considering the private and social welfare under legal and illegal conditions. Next slide. So in order to achieve this objective, the study used the descriptive statistics, the cluster analysis, where we categorize different soil into different groups. The study also used the profit and loss account in order to categorize the profit or loss from each soil category. The study also used the Gini coefficient in order to analyze the inequality, the unequal income distribution between different soil categories. And therefore, the study used a counterfactual analysis of legalizing scenario. I mean, how the legalizing of timber logging could impact the social welfare or the distribution of equality among soil. Next slide. So you can see from this slide that the soil could be categorized into 4 main categories: Group A, that are professional soil; Group B, that are semi-professional soil; Group C, that are upper solvent soil; Group D, that are lower solvent soil. So you can see that there are 4 main groups, but we can group into two subgroups, that is professional soya and survival value soya. You can see from this classification that the professional soya, they log the highest volume timber, whereas the survival soya, they log the lower volume timber. The professional soya also, they have the good capital to go on to the operation, and also while survival soya, they have lower capital. So the professional soya also, they have the chainsaw that are almost new, whereas the survival soya, they use mostly chainsaw that are maybe second-hand category. I mean, they buy in the second hand, meaning that the professional soya, they have enough material to undertake the operation, whereas the survival soya, they don't have enough mean, or they have less mean of to work to do the sowing operation. Next slide, please. Go on. Okay. Now, we still have the classification of soya in terms of the ownership of chainsaw. You can see that the professional soya, they mostly own the chainsaw, whereas the survival soya, most of them, they rent the chainsaw. They have to rent the material before working. You can see that most of the professional soya, they adhere to marketing cooperatives, whereas the survival soya, most of them, they don't adhere to marketing cooperative. You can see from the table that most of the professional soya, they adhere to the social media network, whereas the survival soya, they don't adhere to any of the network. You can see, most importantly, you can see that the professional soya, they log most of the species that are protected by law. So that is forbidden by law. And mostly they log the redwood, the precious redwood, whereas the survival soya, mostly they log the low quality wood, that is the wild wood, that is not protected by law. So in conclusion, we can see that the professional soya, they are logging, they are using the nature, they are violating the law of the nature, logging the redwood that is forbidden by the international convention, whereas the survival soya, because they don't have enough means to maybe to corrupt the people, they are logging the wild wood. Go on, next slide. Next slide. Okay, go on. Now, you can see that from this classification, the elements differentiating the illegal and legal timber logging, that the legal timber logging will give more value add to each of the category of soya. You can just click on the, okay, you can see from this, click that, you can see that the legalizing the timber logging, which will give more value add to each category of soya. This can imply that will be a good solution for the governmental authority to try to apply the law that exists on paper, but that is not applied in the field. Next slide, please.
Dr. Jaza, you have 1 minute left, so try to wrap up now.
Go on. Next slide. Okay, you can see also that the illegality of timber logging will also give a high inequality, while the legality will give low inequality. So by legalizing, also we have less inequality. Next slide. Next slide. In conclusion, the study revealed that legalizing of timber logging will induce soya cooperation, increase social welfare by lowering bribe while raising tax payment, reduce inequality and alleviate poverty, will give rise to lower forest degradation while improving social welfare. Next slide, last slide. So the recommendation will be to create marketing cooperatives so that this soya should help soya category and social networking and group solving problem, that international organizations should accompany the government in implementing legality through the forest conservation project, which exists on paper but delayed to be launched in the field. Next slide. Thank you. Thank you. That's the end of the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Jaza. Very interesting presentation. It really brings us to the realities of work in Cameroon. We are very grateful. Thank you very much. And stay with us online for the question session.
Okay, thank you. I will stay in line.
Thank you. Now let us move to a completely different context, different country, different continent. And I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Xiaoqian. Another language for me as well is a challenge. Do we have Dr. Xiaoqian online with us? Dr. Xiaoqian is Associate Professor at the Beijing Forestry University School of Economics and Management. Over the past 20 years, she also worked with the European Forest Institute, the Nature Conservancy, WWF, the World Bank, the Asia Development Bank, and FAO on various projects in forestry economics and policies areas, especially on the topics of forest governance, trade, and investment. Xiaoqian studied at the Yale School of Forestry and Environmental Studies as Fulbright Scholar in 2016 and 2017. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. I hope you can hear me clearly.
Yes, we can hear you clearly. We see you very well, and we look forward to see your slides.
Great. So thank you, Chair, and thank you for the meeting organizer. It's my pleasure to be here to share.
Will you be sharing your slides, or would you like us to share the slides?
I can share myself.
Yeah, please do. It seems we cannot see it yet.
Okay. Now I hope you can see my presentation.
Very well, yes. Could you go to presentation mode?
Presentation mode. Let me
yes,
see.
because we can see the screen with other slides as well on the.
Sure. Now
very
it
well.
should be fine.
Yes, it is fine. Thank you very much. Please go ahead.
My pleasure. Thank you. So it's my pleasure to be here to share the study we had about China's forest bioeconomy. I will talk about the policy and the market. And this presentation, I work together with my colleague, Dr. Chen Wenhui. So for my presentation, I will go through about following aspects. First, why bioeconomy in China? And also I will briefing you the policy and the market development about forest bioeconomy here in China. Then I will also touch upon the SWOT analysis we had. Then I will end it with some comments and suggestions. So let's go, why bioeconomy in China? As you all know, then China had the very quick economic development speed for decades, but there are also quite a lot of challenges, especially for the environmental pollution and other environmental challenges. So obviously the linear economy doesn't really fit the sustainable development model China would like to address. So that's why China actually set the middle term, long-term goals to trying to shift the traditional economic development model to the green economy model. So with this slide, you can see the middle term, short-term, middle term, and long-term outlines China had to try to shift the old traditional economic development model to the green economic development model. In those outlines, you can see not only touch upon how to change the fossil fuel-based economy to the more renewable source economy, but also they're covered other aspects like the forest and biodiversity conservation aspects. So those national outlines or strategies showed China was really trying to address those environmental challenges in upcoming decades. I have to talk about the concept. Like the previous presenter mentioned, the bioeconomy doesn't uniform the concept yet. So here are similar in China. So if we look at when the bioeconomy was mentioned here in China, you actually see it's along with the whole this green economy development idea here. So back to 2000, the green economy was first mentioned in China, then followed by the circular economy. Then bioeconomy was showed in 2002, with basically more emphasis on the technology and the industry development. Then low carbon economy was also mentioned here in 2006. But all of them actually shared the same philosophy, which was really trying to moving the unsustainable, not circular economy model to the sustainable and circular economy. And with that, we here also trying to address a particularly China featured concept, which is ecological civilization goal China put. And with this ecological civilization goal, actually, we're also trying to address the national SDG goals and also the climate change commitment China had. And then if you look at this different concept, even though they named different, but again, they share the same philosophy. And if you look at the forest sector never lacked of any of the concepts mentioned here. It actually played a unique and special role, no matter in the green economy, circular economy, low carbon economy, or bioeconomy. However, unfortunately, how to systematically to play the forest sector's role in the bioeconomy wasn't really comprehensively started here. So, but it's already drawn attention for a lot of the researchers and the policymakers. Especially, I think here I want to mention that because China was in the unique position in the global value chain, it also put China in a special role in terms of the moving the bioeconomy, not only by itself, but also work together with the partners along this value chain. So for this concept, the bioeconomy, in the China's bioeconomy national strategy, there was a clear definition about the bioeconomy. You can saw it from the purple blocks. If you look at it directly, you didn't find the first there at all. However, if you look detailed contents there, then you see forest sector was also included in the different aspects. So our research team actually summarized in current bioeconomy strategy China had where the forest pieces fit in. So then we realized actually forest bioeconomy here in China not only includes the visible traditional forest products and also some novel forest products. We will touch upon that later. And also the invisible forest services like the ecological services forest had also be included in the forest bioeconomy concept here in China. Now I would like to talk about the forest bioeconomy policy here in China. Here is a general slide to you to understand the forest situation here in China. I will not go to the detail, but just let you know the forest areas, even though wasn't really China wasn't really have a very high forest coverage rate. However, China's forest sector was pretty strong. So back to 2018, the total forest products import export value for China is $165 billion US. And as you see, China not only export a lot of the furniture, wood flooring, but also imported a lot of the raw material globally. That in terms of the forest bioeconomy related policy, here we listed a lot. However, unfortunately, so far, we still don't have any specific forest bioeconomy legislation or regulation. But again, you can still find related content in the different national strategies and policies, which actually pave the way for the future to better unlock forest sector's role in the bioeconomy. If we look at the market aspect, I would like to also highlight it, the different elements of the forest bioeconomy here in China. First of all, forest bioeconomy here in China have the traditional forest bioeconomy products part, which actually featured by the wood processing industry. We give a lot of the maps and data here I will not go to the detail, but just give you the general features of that. China is the largest wood flooring export country, largest wood furniture export country, and the largest also plywood export country. On the other side, China also is the largest log and sun timber importation country. So as a global wood processing hub, China's wood processing industry are pretty big in the forest bioeconomy family. This is a first part of the first bioeconomy family here in China. The second one I want to mention.
Dr. Xiaoqian, please, you have 1 minute, so try to wrap up now. Okay,
great. So the traditional, another traditional forest bioeconomy products was wood construction, and also the wood biofuel industry. So they also grew a lot here in China. I want to quickly mention that the new forest bioeconomy products also developed very quickly here, which include the wood-based textile and wood-based plastic. That's also growing fast. However, no matter for the traditional forest bioeconomy products or the novel forest products, bioeconomy products, we still have the challenges here. So with this SWOT analysis, we actually touch upon what are the strengths, weakness, opportunity, and threats. I will not go to the detail. But based on the SWOT analysis, we actually highlighted in order to promote or unlock the forest sector's role in the bioeconomy in the future, we need to really work hardly to build up the enabling policy environment and also increase investment and also trying to find a good business model and use it more. And also, I also would like to finally mention that international cooperation on the forest bioeconomy also very important for China and also for other forest bioeconomy countries. So that's all my presentation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Xiaoqian. Very interesting to find out about the ambitions of your country, very high ambitions. Congratulations on the ambitions. Absolutely adore the concept of ecological civilization, something really to be kept in mind next to all our concepts that we have. Next speaker, as we are running quickly today, is Dr. Nele Schmitz. We would like to, yes, please, is with us this time. And Dr. Nele Schmitz is a scientist at the Thunen Institute in Germany. She started her research career studying the wood anatomy and mangroves. A strong urge to better understand world problems took her across several projects, studying megatrends, forest interactions, and global timber trade. Currently, she is exploring the transformation of the German forestry sector, and we are going to hear more about this. The floor is yours.
Thank you. So I want to show you the forest for the trees again. Circular economy is a hot topic, but just because of that, it's easy to get lost of its meaning. So via the example of a collective action in Germany's forestry sector, which is called the Charter for Wood, I want to illustrate to you what is the meaning of a circular economy for the forestry sector. So what is the Charter for Wood? It's a dialogue process, which was initiated by the German Ministry of Food and Agriculture, and all partners are around the table, all forestry sector experts, the civil society organizations, the different forest-based industries, all the different research disciplines, and the government of the different levels. And what is their goal? Their main goals are to promote sustainable wood use, to increase the contribution of the forest sector to climate protection, value creation, and efficient resource use. And for these goals, different working groups were installed to work towards the goals. And then different indicators were developed to follow up progress. 2 evaluations took already place, one in 2017 and one in 2019. So let's have a close look at these data. the German forestry sector was hit by calamities. The calamity wood percentage as proportion of total loggings increased quite dramatically, which went together with a decrease in carbon storage in the forest. These calamities, led to unplanned wood use. The softwood experts increased strongly. The resource efficiency expressed as added value per volume raw wood equivalent decreased. And the carbon storage in wood products itself, they increased, but the value creation stagnated. The percentage wooden buildings didn't really further increase much. The material use of hardwood timber, neither. And the time that it takes to find skilled professionals only further increased. So what is a future perspective if we would transform to a circular economy? Calamities could be prevented, or at least be easier dealt with. Because in a circular economy, forests would be managed to keep the forest resilience. And maybe the most important, the pressure on the forest would be less, as the economy would be less dependent on virgin resources. Also, uncertainties like these unplanned wood use would be easier dealt with, because not only the ecosystem, but also the economic system would be more resilient, less dependent on scale, more dependent on scope, using the entire potential of the forestry sector, of all different forest products and services, and using their durability. And instead of a stagnating value creation, a circular economy would valorize all forms of capital, would recognize that economic capital can only be there if there is human capital and if there is natural capital. That's all very nice, but that's of course potential. How do we get to this magical solution of a circular economy? Magical solutions ask for big transformations. One transformation is in the research sector. Lots of research has been done already, also in the forestry sector, but the research needs to be more coordinated and aligned. There is lots of research at the side of products and processes, but not so much at the side of people, where the biggest potential sustainability impact is. Why? Because if we look to these R strategies, the resource value retention options, then we see that the rethink strategies, those are the ones with the biggest potential to change the production and consumption system to make it more sustainable. Although the most attention now goes to the recover strategies, the recovery for energy and recycling materials. But you need to go to more rethinking design, rethinking processes, rethinking entire organizations. And for this, you need changing behavior, changing from using products instead of using services. Also, policies need to be better coordinated and better aligned. We still live in silos, we think in silos and we act in silos. Actually, the entire ministries should be changed because it's still in these different silos, while we know that the big societal challenges can't be categorized. So why do also the policies focus on these recovery strategies? Because it's easy, you don't need to change much for that. And finally, also the businesses need to transform. The business models need to be aligned with the environment, with the stakeholders, with the technologies. Most attention now goes to the end, to the technological innovations. That's nice. But if you want to go further than nice pilot studies, if you really want a system change, you need to start from organizational innovation. The entire business models need to change and need to focus on value creation for the customer. If it's an economy which is less dependent on virgin resources, it will depend on collaboration. You will need to share resources, logistics, infrastructure. So you will need social innovation. So what can we conclude from this? Circularity does not mean looping. Circularity means circular thinking, system thinking, to be able to transform complexity in resilience. And actually, complexity is resilience. If you see this complexity, if you see all these different forest-related sectors, the different policy domains, different research disciplines, the entire supply chain actors, if you see all these different ecosystem services and their trade-offs, the various human needs, if you see them, if you understand them, and if you coordinate them. Second lesson, there is not one pathway towards circularity. Yes, we have these different R strategies, and yes, the rethink strategies have the biggest, should be the goal, but it are still options, it are not orders. What is the meaning of, why do we want to go to a circular economy? Because we want sustainable development. What is sustainable development? It means dependent on context. So in some conditions, it can still be that burning wood or recycling is the most sustainable option. It will depend on the context. And finally, people are at the core, always. Now the economy is focused on resources, but in a circular economy, as we don't depend anymore on virgin resources, it will automatically mean that we depend on collaboration. And that will be the very difficult part. So sustainable means system-wide, means collaborative. So think widely, act collectively, and reflect regularly.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very interesting presentation, very on the point. I like these different recommendations that you give us directly to policy, business models, and of course, not a big discovery, but yet everything is in our hands, so human capital. Thank you very much for the presentation. And now let me invite on the floor our last speaker for the presentation is Dr. Paola Pozo, who is a researcher at the Tunen Institute of Forestry. And her main focus is the monitoring and evaluation of sustainable and circular bioeconomy. Currently, she's working on a monitoring system for Germany that includes the assessment of socioeconomic and environmental impacts of the bioeconomy, as well as sustainability impacts of imported commodities. Dr. Pozo received her doctoral degree from the Technical University in Berlin, with a focus on strategies to achieve multifunctional, biodiverse, and sustainable forest landscapes. The floor is yours.
Thank you for the introduction, Alicia. So, yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paola Pozo. I'm a researcher at the Tunen Institute of Forestry. And it's my pleasure to be part of this session. Together with my colleague, George Vanley, we wanted to bring this topic that's about bioeconomy monitoring and evaluation. And that's actually one strong focus of our institute. And as you could see from the previous presentations, bioeconomy is often related with different social, economic, and environmental benefits. However, it's important to keep in mind that it's not necessarily more sustainable and does not always create win-win in all the sustainability dimensions. This transition implies opportunities, but also implies trade-offs. And therefore, it's important to follow them, so to track the bioeconomy, and therefore a monitoring system is a prerequisite. And also that's why our monitoring system is focused not only in assessing the development of bioeconomy per se, but also the sustainability of the bioeconomy. So this is what we're going to see today. So I'm going to give a very short description of the conceptual framework that we have, a more detailed description of the material flow and life cycle assessment approach that give us a more detailed view of bioeconomy at value chain level. I'm going to use an example, in this case, Uruguay. And finally, I'm going to wrap up the presentation with some general conclusions and remarks. So this is the conceptual framework to monitor bioeconomy. And we basically see bioeconomy from two different angles, from the sectoral part that you could see, and that give us a more general view of bioeconomy and puts bioeconomy into perspective with the whole economy. And the material flow approach that give us a more detailed view of bioeconomy at value chain level and allows us to give other types of recommendations in terms of biomass use, for example. And follow the cycle, we continue with data collection and quantification. That's both are depending on each other. And finally, we assess the sustainability effects of material flows and sectors. And this process can be adapted for the second round, also keeping in mind that bioeconomy is also subject to change under changed social, political, and economic conditions. So this is the material flow life cycle assessment approach. As you could see, is basically the combination of so it's the combination of a biomass flow with life cycle principles. So we have a core product that's analyzed. That's a core product from bioeconomy, could be a timber or non-timber forest product. And the biomass of this product is analyzed along the different steps from production, processing, and to the end use. And this is related to different sustainability indicators. In terms of the sustainability, we try to focus holistically, so going beyond economy, but including also social, environmental indicators. And for example, relating this biomass quantities with total employment that's generated, or total value added that's generated, or greenhouse gas emissions, among others. So this is, so I wanted to exemplify this approach with the case study. Here you could see Uruguay, a small country in South America, but actually with a big connection to the global bioeconomy. It's a big producer of pulp, and also it's very relevant. Here I remarked the Europe because it's very relevant as a big supplier for the European Union. And this is also one element of monitoring that we are working currently. So to see bioeconomy also from a global perspective and not only include the sustainability impacts that are caused domestically, but also the international impacts that are linked to domestic demands. Okay, so this is how it looks, the pulp value chain of Uruguay. I'm not going to get into detail, but here you could see that most of the biomass is exported. So actually 99% of the biomass is exported mainly to Europe and Asia. And you could see also the different steps, how the biomass flows in the different steps. And in terms of circularity, also we could see that there are different steps where you will see, so residues are generated along the complete value chain, but you could see, for example, in harvesting residues, they are not used further, they are left on the ground. Then inside the same value chain, so you have a parallel one, the sound logs, that produce also residues that go inside pulping, so they serve as an input for the pulp industry. And also during the pulping process, there's different residues that are generated, especially black liquor, and it's used for the generation of bio-based energy. And our next question would be, what are the sustainability effects associated? So actually I put here 3 examples. You have employment, value-added, greenhouse gas emissions, and you could see how it looks in every step of the value chain. Just as a general description, you could see that 80% of the employment is generated in the production of roundwood, and less than 20 is generated in the production of pulp. However, this pattern contrasts with the value added generated, where almost 70% more value added is generated in the production of pulp in comparison with roundwood. And then when we see greenhouse gas emissions, we have another pattern where the greenhouse gas emissions are dominated in the industry stage. And actually the production of roundwood represents only 10% of the total emissions. There is carbon sequestration, but this doesn't offset the total emissions. But when we include something like substitution effects, and this is related to what I show you in the previous slides with the supply chain, that there is production of bio-based energy. So this bio-based energy is used for industry, but also there is a surplus that's sold to the grid for energy generation for household in Uruguay. And this energy, so this substitution of energy, substituting other mixes, according to one livestock assessment that we used, at the end replace this or offset the total emissions. No? So this is more or less to take into account or to see what are the different phases depending on which indicator you are including as part of the assessment, and therefore it's important in sustainability, because it's a very complex word, to try to include the representative indicators to have more holistic overview. So with this, I wanted to start to close the presentation. As you could see, bioeconomy, as I say, it implies opportunities, but also trade-offs, and it's important to have a system of monitoring and evaluation that goes towards bioeconomy, but without putting sustainability at risk. And then that the material flow approach gives us another view of bioeconomy, allows us to see bioeconomy from more detailed perspective at value chain level. And this bears potential not only to identify how much every step contributes to certain sustainability objective, but also to identify opportunities where to improve sustainability. And of course, for that, we depend on data, and there are different challenges in data, especially when we are talking about sustainability that's related to very specific contextual frameworks. So we use mainly national statistics, but because of the data disaggregation, sometimes we have to combine this with secondary statistics or empirical studies to have a higher disaggregation. And there are important data gaps, especially in environmental data in terms of time series, and also in general some indicators that are difficult to quantify. And to close out the presentation, that I wanted to highlight again that assessing bioeconomy requires to have an holistic approach, going beyond economy, including also other dimensions, and including also so seeing bioeconomy from a global perspective. That means including impacts on distant ecosystems. Yeah, with that, I close. Thank you very much. And if you would like to have more information, please visit our webpage.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Pozo. Thank you also for reminding us the importance of social aspects when we consider sustainability of bioeconomy in the long term. So with this last presentation of the first block of presentations, now I'd like to move to the panel discussion, which is going to be questions from the floor and also from participants online to all our speakers. So I'd like to invite our in-person speakers to the podium, so I think it will be easier to interact with the audience. And the floor is now open for questions from the floor. Yes, please.
Hello. Yes,
from sorry,
Germany.
Please indicate your name, affiliation also, and to whom you would like to ask your questions. And also, because we don't have so much time, maybe let's stick to the questions rather than comments. And then if you have comments for discussion later after the session individually.
Germany, from the Research Institute for Forest Ecology and Forestry in Rheinland-Palatinate. Just a basic question maybe to you. I hear bioeconomy, and I wonder if bioeconomy is restricted only to wooden products or to biomass. What's with the economy of ecosystem services, payments for water, payments for any ecotourism or anything like this?
Okay, I will answer immediately. Who am I to say what is bioeconomy? I think there are so many opinions of that, that there are people in the room. If you ask my personal opinion, yes, certainly we should talk about ecotourism and ecosystem services naturally. Bioeconomy is not only about the use of wood, it is many other things, and all the ecosystem services should be included. But as we don't have definition, many people interpret this differently. I also have an opportunity to work on questions related to green jobs in the bioeconomy. And of course, we talk a lot about the ecotourism there, and also other services in the forest, like landscape management, also forest monitoring. You know, there's so many aspects of actually ecosystem services. All that should be, in my opinion, bioeconomy but we wait for the official definition. Other questions to other speakers? Also like to reflect on the question that was asked to myself. Please.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to complement that it's a very good point that, yeah, we tend to focus in wood, no, when we are thinking about bioeconomy, but actually bioeconomy is bigger than just wood and includes non-timber forest products, different services, and also it's actually very contextual to, it seems that also different countries have their own concepts of bioeconomy because they also have their own resources. And yeah, no, I just wanted to complement in this way, no, that it's a, there's no one definition, no, and this it's also I think it's also valid that certain countries, according to their resources, include sectors as part of the bioeconomy and others not.
Thank you. Any other questions from the floor? Yes, please go ahead. At the beginning, first row.
Okay, Florian Kraxner from International Institute for Applied Systems Analysis. Thanks a lot for opening also my eyes on bioeconomy. And I'm very much looking forward to get a real definition on that, designed by you, most probably. So bioeconomy and bioenergy. Please, can you explain a little bit to what extent bioenergy is seen as part of, or as an essential part of the bioeconomy? And also how the present discussion on bioenergy in Brussels, as you might follow that, might influence that, and you might pick that up in your definition, probably. So I think this goes to everybody here. You are all experts in that topic, and I'm very much interested to hear about that. Thank you.
So please.
On. That's a hot topic, yes, this energy question. Well, it depends on who you ask, which country you ask. It's not the aim, because then you don't value, if that's valorizing your wood, immediately burning it, that's not where we have to go to. But it's one of the uses of wood, and it's one of these trade-offs which are today mentioned a lot. You can use it for energy, or you can wood it for material use. Theoretically, they always say this cascade use, and then the ideal should be that you first use it in a house, then for furniture, then for fiberboard, and then at the end for energy. Now the pressure is of course very high to put it immediately in energy, and that's all depends on the price. You get more money to burn it immediately than to use it for furniture. And actually there, maybe we need a bigger lobby group, because the prices are fixed by the market, as they say. That's not a natural law. So there is no real answer. That's a political question, actually.
Thank you. Paola, do you have a comment on that?
Well, just maybe something very basic that, yeah, bioenergy is included as part of bioeconomy because it's bio-based, no? And there, as she already highlighted very well, the different trade-offs. I think it also depends on contextual frameworks. In this case, for Uruguay, what I show, this generation of bioenergy actually avoids to generate other emissions while using mixes, no, and at the end generates a positive effect. Yeah.
Yes, I see your question at the back. I think first I'd like to also ask if our speakers who are online would like to comment on this question, because it seems this question also has many dimensions. So before we go to the next.
Yes, this
Please
is
go ahead.
Xiaoqian. Yeah, this is Xiaoqian. If I may allow, I think yes, I think from at least from China's situation, then the bioenergy is sort of also part of the discussion here when we mention forest bioeconomy. So here in China, if we talk about the bioenergy, actually forest, like a fiber-based biofuel is part of that. And if you look at the China's bioenergy development plan in the upcoming decades, and then the forest sector was also included part of that. And even though I don't have time to mention in my presentation, but I do have a slide mentioned, there are quite a lot of the bioenergy plantations here also in China as part of the backup for this forest biofuel industry. And it actually pretty mature. So that's my comments from online. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Xiaoqian. I think also from my perspective, very quickly, I'd like to respond to that when we were preparing our study and we looked at different models of circular economy that often treat economy overall, indeed, bioenergy is seen there as a residue, it doesn't circulate, but I don't think it is the case in the forest sector because we have the biological cycle, we have technical cycle, and these cycles interact. And in this case, you know, bioenergy feeds the cycle because it is a carbon cycle, and then you have residues also that come back to the forest. So in that sense, yes, the bioenergy is part of the cycle. And I will not comment on what is happening in Brussels because I'm representing a completely different organization. Maybe before that, I will, again, it's a very interesting topic and we want to switch so we can take that also after the session. But I'd like to also give some space to the questions from participants online. So please tell me if there are any questions from the participants online. Yes, please go ahead, ask the question on behalf of them. And also we ask if there's information to which speaker this question was addressed, or is a general question, and we will try to handle this.
Okay, I'm not a speaker, I'm just a proxy. I have some questions from the online audience, not directed at anyone in particular, but more the panel. So they would actually like to know what are the actual differences between the terms bioeconomy and circular economy. It is a bit difficult to differentiate between the two, especially since they're both evolving so fast, you know, and they ask if it would make sense defining them further if they're evolving so fast. And perhaps UFRO has a role to play here in further defining these. I'm not sure who wants to answer that. Thank you. One.
I will ask my colleagues if they want to. Yes, please go ahead.
Well, the presentation I showed is out of a, it's actually, how do you call it? A sneak preview, which you got. It's a report which will appear before Christmas or just after from the Carta für Wood, the Charter for Wood. So, and there I try to, it's not really like a definition, but at least I try to clarify a bit all this unclear use of the terms. And it's like Alicia said, yeah, there is no agreed international definition, and that's a problem. But at least for the Charter for Wood in Germany, the report is made to create a common understanding, because that's indeed, maybe every country first needs to do it for himself, define what do we mean with circular economy so that all the different sectors can work together, because you can only go to somewhere if you all have the same idea of what it means. So I defined a sustainable circular bioeconomy. But for now, it doesn't exist.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Do we also have some comments from China or Cameroon from our speakers?
Yes, if I may.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, I think that's a very good question. And also not only circular economy, there are other paralleling concepts too, like low carbon economy, green economy. So it's important to actually find out the boundaries between those different concepts. But on the other hand, we have to bear in mind they also share the same philosophy there. So I think from researcher community here in China, we mostly, and also the policy practice here in China, we mostly circular economy used here with more attention on the economic input and output. But when we mention the bioeconomy, it's also it's not only only about the economic input-output aspects, not only about that 5C principles. It's also about the social and ecological aspects. That's why now we also trying to highlight the forest bioeconomy potential here in China, because it had a special ecological features there. So yes, I would have to say there needs to different those concepts. But again, if you look at those concepts, you will see they just highlighted a certain part of the whole like a sustainable development idea. So I have to say that it have to fit in the different countries' situation, and you can hardly actually have a unified definition of them. Another final comment was you see people actually add the concept together. So if you look at the EFI had a different report on the bioeconomy and the circular bioeconomy, and I saw my colleagues use the circular bioeconomy as a new terms. However, again, it doesn't matter about the items itself. It really matters how we could marry the concept with the different countries' reality that helps the country really achieve their goals to change from the fossil fuel-based economy to the real renewable economy. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, very, very valuable comments indeed. And also, I think what I try to say in my presentation, sometimes when we cannot really decide on the definition, we can be guided by principles, because also they are relevant to many definitions. So maybe this could be our anchor sometimes as well. Let's go back to our room and other questions. And we had there a question at the back from a gentleman. So please take the floor and introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm Pelle Madsen from Innova Silver, Denmark. And it was just a common question on the thing about biofuels. And I totally agree with our Chinese colleague that we have to keep in mind that the main challenge is to get independent of fossil fuels and turn to renewables. And in that context, it's so important that the use of biomass for energy is not misunderstood, because I think it's clear for everybody that a future with increased use of wood instead of steel and concrete, for instance, will include massive climate change mitigation potential.
And your question is?
Yeah, and my question is, can we be sure that when we communicate to the politicians and decision makers that the use of bioenergy is a use of residuals and not, and if we increase our use of wood, we will have an increased amount of residuals for disposal.
And your question is to?
Yeah, well, it was a comment on the fact that, or it was a comment on the saying that the use of bioenergy is actually outcompeting the use of wood. Sorry.
Anybody wants to comment on that among the speakers? So as it was a comment, mostly let's treat it as a comment, and I'll ask if there are any other comments in the room, or sorry, questions that are guided by the comment now. Maybe we have questions online still. Okay.
I have a question directed at Paola. Okay, so this is from someone who says that she works in forest economics in Uruguay, and she asks if you can elaborate more on the indicators that you're using to monitor Uruguay's case.
Yeah, so here I put three examples, so employment, value added, and greenhouse gas emissions as an example, because we are also measuring, for example, land use change and biodiversity loss, among others. The data comes in originally from official statistics from Uruguay, so from the Dirección General Forestal, from General Forestry Direction. And we combined the national statistics. So we take a deeper look on the national statistics, and we combine these national statistics with other empirical studies in order to disaggregate this not only at country level, but also, for example, analyze how much employment was generated per every step of the supply chain. And this is very challenging in the way that how it's currently done, the economic statistics system is not always easy to check at value chain levels. And yeah, this is also one of the recommendations that we have about bioeconomy monitoring, not to be able to generate statistics that allow us to see to this level of detail.
Yes, and so thank you very much. With this question and answer, I would like to now close the panel as we are running with our time, and move to the next part of the session. If you want, can stay at the stage. And now we will go to the part that is dedicated to flash talks. And we again have a few presentations from different countries, covering different topics. And I'd like to invite to the stage Ms. Alizée Ville from the University of Helsinki for her presentation. And this time you have even less time, so good luck to you.
Thank you, Alicia. I'll be quick. So this work stems from a study we conducted at the Stockholm Resilience Center in Sweden. We've seen in this panel that there are many varying definitions of bioeconomy across countries. And in Sweden, which is one of the biggest producers of forest products in Europe, the bioeconomy has become a very popular trend in literature. And it's promising to create jobs, rural development, growth. And we were looking at, where does equity come into this? Who gets to frame these projects and these objects, and where is equity in here? And so that's why we looked at gender equality. Sweden is a great example of this paradox, because on one hand, it's a very big timber producing country, and on the other hand, it's a forerunner in gender politics. For 10 to 20 years, it has been the forerunner in a very prolific gender strategy in the forest sector, probably one of the first in Europe. But we noticed a paradox, because in many indicators, especially in private companies, gender has decreased in the past 10 years. There has been much progress done in private forest ownership, but for some reason in private companies, there has not been the expected change. So we asked the following question: what is the problem of gender equality represented to be in the Swedish forest sector? Here, the problem has to be put into quotes, because we're looking at this in a constructivist paradigm. So we're not looking to see what the problem is and how to solve it. We're looking at how policy frames it and what solutions are framed to provide a solution to this. So as methods, we based our analysis on the WPR approach, which is developed by Baki in 2009, which wants to evaluate policies for their ability to solve problems. We need to study the way policies construct problems. The data we used was the most recent and prolific gender strategies in forest development and rural development. And we asked 3 questions. How is the problem of gender equality represented in Swedish forest policy? What effects does this representation have on the expectations of women's roles and behaviors? And in what spaces does gender inequality exist in the forest sector? Who does this benefit, and what opportunities does it have to evolve? And we found an interesting contradiction in the results after analysis, because on one side, we have a framing of policy which claims that women are not attracted to the forest sector because of discrimination, sexual harassment, and because of this historical male dominance in the forest sector, which others women, which makes them feel out of place in this sector in which they want to work. But on the other side, women are expected to provide credible growth to the forest sector by being more dynamic, creating more pleasant workplaces, more creative and sustainable, which eventually will lead, hopefully, to profitable companies. And on the other hand, rural policy, we see this narrative that without women, the countryside is dying out. So on one hand, women are expected to provide more growth to the forest sector, while on the other hand, being expected to provide the solution to the problem for which they're excluded from the sector in the first place. This is what one of our interviewees called counting bodies like counting trees, that we're considering women as just another factor of growth, that we want more women without really considering how to include them and how to value their skills.
Could you wrap up?
I'm done.
Oh, wonderful.
This
Perfect
was
timing.
done in the context of a sequel project, which compared the same narrative in Norway, Spain, Finland, and Sweden. And you can find more information on the website. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Another very important aspect of managing forest and participation of different stakeholders. Our next presenter is Pekka Lauri from International Institute of Applied Systems Analysis, Austria. And I guess he is with us. So run, because you don't have so much time. Clock is ticking.
Okay, so our project studies the
maybe closer to the microphone.
Oh, okay, sorry. So in this,
Do you want to have mine?
Thank you. This is too short. Yeah. Okay, let's start again. So hello everybody. My name is Pekka Lauri. I come from Jaza, from Austria, and we have been studying the EU biodiversity strategy and its impacts on the EU forest sector or bioeconomy. And this EU biodiversity strategy, the idea is to protect 30% of the EU forest area in 2030, including primary forest, and then 10% of this 30%, 10% is set aside and 20% close to the nature. And the method is maybe a little bit more specific and quantitative than these other methods I have seen in this session. So basically, it's a global forest sector model called Global Forest. And in this model, we don't care too much about the definition of bioeconomy or circular economy, but we just include them there. And for example, this model, it includes this kind of recycling loops and this cascading use of forest, but also much more. And basically, it uses a lot of different data sets on production side, but also on the land use side. And the main results of this analysis is actually turn out that this impact of this EU biodiversity strategy is quite small to the EU bioeconomy or forest sector. And the main reason is that we actually are already protecting 24% of the EU forest area. But there is this but here that actually this result depends much on how this strategy is implemented, and this is not very clearly defined in this EU strategy, and also this is not studied before. So, for example, like we can allocate these protected areas spatially in different levels, like in country or EU level, also even in grid level. But also this close to the nature management is not very well defined, and we don't have a clear idea that how this is going to impact, for example, the harvest volumes. So,
can you wrap up now?
Here is some maps which shows or demonstrates this biodiversity strategy implementation in the different spatial level. The first picture is there is no targets, it's a current state. Second one, we are protecting, optimizing these protected areas in the EU level, while the third one in the country level and the last one in the even final grid level. And we see that these dark green areas are set aside primary forest, and this light green is close to nature. So they are allocated quite differently within Europe. For example, like if we go more country grid level allocation, then these protected areas are allocated more equally all over Europe, which of course means quite much for how we think about the biodiversity impact will be.
Thank you.
Was it already over?
You're a bit over time.
Okay.
One last sentence.
Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you. No,
One and a
explain
half.
the results next time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That really reminds us of the importance also of biodiversity protection and bioeconomy. So quickly now to another speaker. And now we have with us Anu Laakkonen from the University of Eastern Finland. Please come up to the floor.
Good evening, everybody, or afternoon, actually. So I'm Anu Laakkonen. I am a project coordinator, currently actually working in the University of Helsinki, but I have done this research with my colleagues in the University of Eastern Finland, and it's titled, How Does an Established Pulp and Paper Business Field Transform Towards Sustainable Circular Forest Bioeconomy? And we thought that it's important to find an answer on this question so we can understand how an established company or bioeconomy related business field can respond to the global challenges. And we analyze documents through this kind of theory guided analysis framework, which is the business environment transformation cycle, seeing that business fields transform through 3 phases of stabilization, exploration, and mobilization. We notice that the business field is already stabilized and it has common ways of operating and creating value in this kind of capital intensive and natural resource-based value creating system. And we notice that there are many global challenges on macro, meso, and micro levels, and they are economic, ecological, and social, and they are pressuring the business field to change. And there are also a lot of strategies aiming to transition to circular bioeconomy. These things have initiated this kind of exploration phase when the business field has started to seek for path-breaking business innovations which utilize renewable, recyclable, and biodegradable bio-based resources. In addition, they're also creating a common development agenda by applying this kind of narrative that they are already a forerunner in sustainable circular forest-based bioeconomy. Due to this, they have started the mobilization phase as they are doing incremental adaptations in their value creating system by producing new pulp-based products with new processes. The paper business is slowly transforming into packaging business, and there is already a lot of cross-sectoral collaboration in research, development, and innovation activities. However, we notice that there is not actually a concrete transformation due to these incremental adaptations, and thus no stabilization phase yet. And the sustainability has been contested as especially the social and environmental dimensions are not met properly. And also there is some kind of conflict between the narrative and the actions, what they are really doing. And this might be also hampering the stabilization. Then what should the business field do to transform? We think that the value creation logic should be holistically sustainable, collaborative, and cross-sectoral, where sustainability is seen as an opportunity and not only as a burden for the industry. And also to truly create this kind of truly common sustainable agenda, the different stakeholders should be engaged and their perspectives should be also seen there. And the companies could also utilize strategic foresight to advance this kind of collaborative exploration of new business opportunities and thus create resilience in the future and competitive advantage. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very important also to explore what is the role of business in this transition. Now let's move on to the next speaker who is with us online. Dalia Abbas who is a National Science Fellow in the USA.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay,
yeah.
Perfect. Can you see my screen?
Not yet, but yes. Okay, perfect.
You can. Okay, perfect.
All right.
Great.
Right now I see it as well.
All
yes.
right, and
okay.
I'm timing myself.
Please go ahead.
Thank you so much, everyone, for this opportunity. And I'm so grateful that I'm able to present online. Today, I'm talking about really a flash talk about a current project we're working on, which is about using and developing and identifying hybrid indicators that can help us understand impacts of technology on forest and agricultural sustainability, really land use. As a disclaimer, this is by no means a representation of what the National Science Foundation necessarily their opinion. This is my opinion. So I go back and I would like to define what I mean by hybrid indicators. Hybrid indicators is this amorphous term that was developed to try to link things that are unseemingly related. In this case, we're relating technology and patents and innovations to sustainability. It's hybrid because technology is not necessarily developed with sustainability in mind. So what have we done? We've tried to look at all existing or available existing indicators, and I'm so happy to hear that the concept of indicators was prevalent in these discussions, and to look at existing technologies, sustainability indicators separately, and to try to discern how we might understand an input-output impact relationship. And for that, we proposed a preliminary hybrid indicator, which basically is linking an unrelated to sustainability variable to a sustainability variable through a land-based understanding. Now, why is this important? Let me give you an example about the huge land scale and landscape impact of biotechnology. As an example, in the US, in 2021 alone, if you add just the biotech land used for corn, soybeans, and cotton, you would come up with an area as big as France and Switzerland, which is huge. And it's by no means may we underestimate the value of assessing sustainability of large-scale impact technologies. So what have we done? We've done the typical literature review. We've met virtually, unfortunately, because of COVID, with national and global leaders. We've analyzed relevant data sets and indicators, mined data sets, to analyze them. And we try to understand exactly how they do define indicators when it connects technology with indicators. And then eventually we're proposing a hybrid indicator that can integrate technology and sustainability using the proposed land-based indicator, which is essentially based on the Sustainable Development Goals related to sustainable agriculture and forestry systems, 2.41 and 15.1 and 15.12, if you are familiar with these target goals. So for demonstration, I want to give you a taste of some of the indicators we've looked at. We've looked at biotechnology indicators, the 7 key biotechnology indicators under OECD. We've looked at the existing FAO World Bank numerous agricultural indicators, environmental indicators, you name it. The interesting one is the patent indicators, which really isn't very relevant to our areas, because even in the US, we do not have a land of biotech trees. Biotechnology is mostly limited to corn and soybeans and crops. We've looked to how they even measure the impacts of GMOs and what indicators measure those and indicators and sustainable development goals, of course. We found that indicators are much broader than what we were hoping to find in terms of linking it to sustainability. They look at economy, ecological, technological advantage. Technological categories are broader than biotechnology impact, so we can't pin it down. We need more insights that can be integrated into existing indicators to understand impacts, which may not necessarily be positive or negative. Thank you all who have organized this, who have contributed to this study, and of course to you for being here. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I know it's a challenge to share so much information on the time pressure, so we very much appreciate. And now I move on to our last speaker, Mr. Joram Kogombe from Kenya Forest Research Institution in Nairobi. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, and I request that you can share the slide for me. And yes, my presentation will be on assessment of policy and legislative framework for commercial forestry in Kenya. And maybe just a background is last year, we had a very successful commercial forest conference and expo, where we were looking at what is the potential of commercial forestry in the country. And this paper was prepared in the context of that conference. And in terms of introduction, Kenya, there is a very high demand for wood products, getting to a deficit of 10 million meter cubic per hectare. This actually gives potential for commercial forestry. And the country has developed 10% forest cover strategy. Within this 10% forest cover strategy, the country aims to upscale commercial forestry as a competitive land use, especially in private lands outside gazetted forests, and also in arid and semi-arid lands. The potential for commercial forestry is actually 300,000 hectares outside the gazetted forest. So this paper, we explored the policy and legislative framework which are available for commercial forestry in Kenya, and we are looking at the entire value chain. And some of the result is that we have a Forest Conservation and Management Act, which is the main law that governs the forestry sector in Kenya. We found that it has a very good guidelines and recommendation, which go in line with the FAO guidelines. It covers issues of concession, and there are a number of guidelines which help commercial forestry, but we found that there are gaps that need to be addressed, especially when we are looking at harvesting value of a forest per given area. We need to improve on the efficiency in revenue collection. We need to improve on evaluation of concession, the whole process of concession, the whole process of bidding, and also issues of gender inclusivity in issues of forestry. We've also found that commercial forestry should be promoted as a long-term investment venture. And this to happen, we need to ensure that there is proper land tenure, secured land tenure. There should be respect for private ownership. There should be development of reliable economic guidelines and standards. There should also be issues of governance should be promoted. And also we should be able to tackle issues of efficient and issues of also conflict management mechanisms. This, we found that to be able to upscale commercial forestry, there is also need to bring on board third-party observers, especially people who can come and ensure that there is also good governance. There is also issue of promoting good practices like forest certification, because the forest certification will also help in issues of improving the prices and also issues of improving the value chain process. In conclusion, we found that though there is a policy and legislative framework available which can kick off the commercial forestry, we need to do more to improve enabling policies for commercial forestry, and we should be able to cover the entire value chain. And commercial forestry to us is a very important bioeconomy for the country, because it will not only produce much needed bioenergy for the issues of especially for the rural households, it will also bring income to the it will bring income and also improve livelihood for the Kenyans. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And apologies for rushing you, but we are running out of time. So do I have still some time for closing remarks, or you'd like to take the floor immediately? Yeah, okay, thank you. So we come to the time, but the session was very rich, and it was a challenge to manage this in the absence of Jim, who prepared it and put so much effort into it. So I noted down very quick conclusions that transition to a bioeconomy creates an opportunity, certainly for the forest sector, but there are also many challenges, and we have to face them together. Bioeconomy incorporates many aspects and many aspects and many dimensions. So we can talk about circularity, cascading use. We can talk about circular businesses, technology, carbon cycles. There are so many things all over. We need also a definition that covers all forest functions. We also need to pay attention to social and environmental aspects and dimension. They are so important, and we heard examples from Cameroon and Sweden, and we know that the full transition really depends on them. We need a policy framework and enabling conditions, and we had also examples from China and Germany about policies. We should not forget about non-wood forest products. We should not forget about bioenergy and the role. And finally, we need cooperation. It seems obvious, but without cooperation, without breaking silos, we are not going to succeed in this transformation. We heard about human capital, something I take away home, and also ecological civilization is our ultimate goal, I think. Thank you very much for your attention.